Chapter 2. What is self-projection? Self-projections are both positive and negative emotions, beliefs, qualities, faults, opinions, judgments, and even sometimes behaviors that we see in another that we possess. The concept of projection in psychology has been discussed by several prominent psychologists, including Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung. Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis, proposed the idea of projection in his work on defense mechanisms. According to Freud, projection involves attributing one's own unacceptable or unwanted thoughts, feelings, or impulses to another person. This defense mechanism allows individuals to distance themselves from their own undesirable traits and project them onto others. Jung, a Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, wrote extensively about projection throughout his career, beginning in the early 1900s and continuing until his death in 1961. His ideas on projections are included in several of his major works, including Psychological Types, The Archetypes and the Collective Unconscious, and 2 essays on analytical psychology. He suggests that projection involves attributing one's own desires or motivations onto others, and that it can be a way of confronting and integrating aspects of the self that have been repressed. So while neither Freud nor Jung can be credited for inventing the concept of projection, they both made the significant contributions to our understanding of this psychological phenomenon. Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Everyone is our mirror. Our reflections in others show us not only who we are, but also how to be better. Carl Jung. When we project onto others our feelings, opinions, and assumptions about them without self-reflection, without realizing it is coming from our mind and emotions, not recognizing it in ourselves may be a protection mechanism, protecting ourselves from uncomfortable feelings. It can be too hard to face those aspects within us, so instead we project them onto others. In many cases, a sort of a denial of the self. And here are some examples of negative projections. A dishonest person may frequently accuse others of being deceitful, even when there is no evidence to support this claim. This could be a way for the person to distance themselves from their own dishonesty by projecting it onto others. Someone who is struggling with feelings of anger may project these emotions onto others by assuming that people around them often seem angry, even if there is no objective evidence to support this belief. A person who is insecure about their attractiveness may project their insecurities onto others by assuming that people are judging them negatively based on the appearance, even if there is no evidence to support this. In each of these examples, the person is projecting their own thoughts and feelings or motivations onto others, which can create misunderstandings or conflicts in relationships with others. Examples of positive projections. A person who has a positive self-concept may project their own positive qualities onto others, assuming that others are kind, trustworthy, and honest, which can lead to either positive interactions and relationships with others, or feeling deceived when the other person is not what they assume them to be. Someone who has a growth mindset and believes that they can improve their skills and abilities may project this belief onto others, assuming that others are also capable of learning and growth. I'm guilty of that one. Types of self-projections. I've named and placed them into 4 categories. Emotional self-projections refers to the process by which we subconsciously attribute positive and negative emotions and assumptions towards others that actually reflect our own feelings towards ourselves. To describe this type, people often use adjectives. Throughout our lives, emotional self-projections persist. While they can change and transform as we develop self-awareness and experience personal growth, the underlying tendency to externalize our internal emotions remains consistent. In practical terms, emotional self-projections manifest as assumptions that are not necessarily based on factual information. It can also be seen through criticisms or compliments that we direct towards others, which ultimately reveal our own inner judgments or affirmations about ourselves. How I feel about you is actually how I feel about me. Presumption self-projection. This type occurs when we mistakenly presume that others possess the same feelings, outlooks, and perspectives as we do, leading to a false sense of awareness. It becomes evident when we experience a triggered response when someone disagrees with our beliefs or our values, as we expect them to share our emotional state. Presuming others have had the same preferences for taste and hobbies, or share the same opinions, such as sport teams or religious or political views, are examples of presumption self-projection. It is important to note that since this type resides within the unconscious, once we become aware of this tendency, we gain the ability to stop it. I assume that you are feeling what I am feeling. Knowledge self-projections. This type arises from the unconscious assumption that others possess the same abilities and/or knowledge as ourselves, leading to a false sense of awareness. Knowledge self-projections appear when we get triggered if someone fails to excel at the same abilities or share the knowledge that we possess. It is important to note that this type of self-projection is not constant, and once we become aware of it, we have the capacity to stop it. Examples of knowledge self-projections include instances where a plumber assumes that everyone should know how to repair pipes, a basketball player assumes that everyone can dribble a ball, or a highly intellectual person assumes that everyone shares their level of knowledge. I assume you know what I know. Absolved self-projection. This type is characterized by the denial of one's own behavior, attitudes, and actions, which are instead projected onto others in a reversed manner. Unlike the other types of projections that stem from our emotions, this type revolves around our own actions and conduct. It involves absolving ourselves of responsibility. This type of self-projection can occur both consistently and intermittently. So when we become aware that our own actions are being projected, we have the ability to cease them. However, in cases where denial is deeply ingrained in our subconscious, we may be unable to recognize the projection. It is important to note that absolved self-projection does not apply when factual evidence proves otherwise. Examples include instances where a person who lies or cheats assumes that others are lying or cheating on them or others, or when someone hides or denies their own attraction towards someone and assumes that the other person is attracted to them. Additionally, abusers who accuse others of being abusive exhibit this type of projection. I deny my actions and behaviors and assume that you act and behave the same way. We are the projector. Perceptions play a big part in owning our shit. Understanding how we perceive the world and others is the first step to finding out where self-projections come from. What I feel about you is actually what I feel about myself. How is this true? Well, we must first acknowledge that our mind is creating this perception about someone else. If it comes from our mind, why does it have to be true for them? Our reality is based on our perceptions. Our mind creates perceptions about ourselves, others, and the world. Therefore, the perception belongs to us because, again, it came from our mind. We are experiencing life as we are. Some perceptions may have originated from our partners or social or societal standards, but we have internalized them and now view the world from that lens. Picture a projector in a movie theater. The projector in the back of the theater is projecting an image onto a screen facing it. The image on the screen is what we see, but the information from that image comes from the actual projector. Your external reality is being processed by your internal reality. The whole world is simply my story projected back to me on the screen of my own perception. All of it. Byron Katie. Our senses are the gateway to our perceptions, and they allow us to experience life in its entirety. Whether it's tasting food, listening to music, touching objects, smelling fragrances, or seeing the colors of the world, our senses are what enable us to fully engage with the reality around us. Each of us experiences life uniquely through our senses. For instance, what tastes delicious to one person might be repulsive to another, and what one hears may sound slightly different to another. Thus, we are all perceiving reality differently based on our individual experiences, and this shapes our unique perception of reality. Suppose you and I are standing near a car, and the car alarm goes off. We will perceive the sound differently depending on our respective positions, attention, and hearing ability. This example highlights that our perception is influenced by various factors. Similarly, when we meet someone, the way we experience them is influenced by our position, attention, and hearing. Regardless of where we stand, we are missing out on certain perspectives and information. The true reality can't be gathered by our one perspective. We also perceive reality from our emotions. For example, my experiences with my aunt may be quite different from the experiences my cousin had with their mother. My perceptions may cause me to have a different opinion of her compared to others. My emotions towards my aunt and their emotions towards their mother, the same person, will be vastly different. I had a very loving, fun relationship with my Aunt Gabby. She passed away in 2022, and at her funeral, I was asked to speak. I told everyone how authentic she was and how she always made me feel like I didn't have to change who I was to be loved and accepted. That was my perception of her. And when my cousins and other people spoke about her, they had many different stories and opinions of her that were interesting to hear. Some wild, some more serious. I knew that we all had our experiences with her, and that's what created our perceptions. We all had different opinions about the same person. Were they factual? Perhaps. But I'm sure she was much more than what any of us ever perceived her to be. Our thoughts continuously create emotions. For example, if you think of a person in your life, the thought of that person will create a feeling inside of you. You are the one experiencing that emotion. Try this. Think of a person in your life who gets on your nerves. Oh yeah, that person. Got them in mind? The thought of that person probably comes with a few choice feelings: annoyance, frustration, resentment, straight up anger. If I were to ask someone else to think about that same person, they may have a different emotion about them. If I were to ask you, how do you feel about that person? You are experiencing them based on your perceptions. You may create an opinion from your perception. Ask yourself, have I ever felt that way about myself? When you sit with that uncomfortable feeling, you may discover that it isn't about them. It never is about the other people. We experience our emotions, and nobody knows how we feel but ourselves. This is the beginning of owning your shit. Let's expand our perceptions together. The way to start healing is to become aware of our perceptions, and we do this by using our senses to their full potential. Try doing this often throughout your day. Hyper-focus on a specific sense. Sound, for example. Stop reading for a minute and listen to a subtle sound around you. What do you hear? Now, hyper-focus and listen to the sounds further away. What do you hear now? Do you know what just happened? Your brain just stopped thinking of yesterday and tomorrow. You probably even for a second forgot that you were reading this book. You became extremely present in this moment. Let's do some more. Try becoming aware of the objects around you. Describe out loud or in your mind the colors and the textures. You may even try this when you're eating. Become aware of the smells and the tastes. Describe what you're experiencing. What do the textures feel like on your tongue? Is it sweet, sour, or bitter? I would suggest trying this multiple times a day. The more you program your brain to use your senses to their full potential, you are reprogramming your mind to live in the present moment. Your brain is processing everything that surrounds you and what's within you, unconsciously and subconsciously. When you start using your senses, you're not thinking about yesterday or what may happen tomorrow. You're fully living in the now. If you have feelings of stress, anxiety, depression, or hopelessness, you'll notice a shift within you. A trust in the process of life will develop, and you will understand that the purpose of life is simply experience. When do self-projections start? From birth to about 7 years old, we absorb our surroundings like sponges, taking in everything around us and recording it. During this period, we are highly impressionable, and our emotions can change quickly. We are not yet capable of projecting our thoughts and beliefs onto others. Our brain waves during this time are in the theta, which is a lower vibrational frequency. When we imagine, meditate, or undergo hypnosis, we also enter a theta state, which is between wakefulness and sleep. In this state, we are fully present in the moment and not yet able to project our thoughts and beliefs onto others. Children are not the projector, they are the experience. As we get older, we become more aware and function regularly on beta brainwaves. Beta is alertness, thinking and processing and analyzing information. Hi, Mama. We start creating opinions and judgments and beliefs after 7. This is the time when we start self-projecting. When we hear something, we tend to internalize it and create beliefs based on the information we've received. Some of these beliefs come from our own experiences, while others come from the perspectives of others. As we continue to absorb information, even after childhood, our beliefs are reinforced and start to shape our reality. In a sense, we are both recording and playing back the images from our experiences and perceptions in our visible reality. We become the projector. Notice a child's simplistic emotions. If they are sad, they cry. If they are angry, they yell. Happy, they smile. Excited, they laugh. Their perceptions can change from moment to moment because they are simply experiencing life as it is happening to them. They are using their senses and intuition to guide them through life. But here's the caveat. They are also using people's feelings, their suggestions, their teachings, and even facial expressions to guide them. My mother used to talk to me about her interest in the simplicity of young children's emotions when she began studying early childhood development. When my daughter was little, I remembered my mother recounting interesting facts she learned from school, and she would share them with me. One day, as my toddler gazed up at me after dropping food on the floor, my mother pointed out that my daughter might be looking for validation or seeking my response on how to react to this event. It made me realize how children often seek our approval and reassurance, wanting to feel secure and validated in their actions and experiences. As my daughter got older and started testing my boundaries, my mom mentioned that this is the great sign of a healthy human behavior because young children are realizing slowly that they are separate from their parents. After 18 months old, they start having a sense of self. So they will start to say no and act what some people call as defiant, when in fact they are simply starting to follow their own intuition and inner guidance. It can be easy to live consciously holding back words and reactions amongst adults, in the workplace, and even amongst friends for a limited amount of time. But because children are naturally vulnerable, we can become vulnerable with them. We may be more comfortable with our emotions around children. If we meet them with the unaware, unhealed, vulnerable parts, oftentimes we may find ourselves projecting our shit onto them. Our filters aren't on around our kids, so we won't pretend to feel good around them like we do around others. When we are tired, upset, or sick, feeling our self-projections are in full force, and we unfortunately can end up self-projecting all 4 categories onto them. Here are some examples of what that may sound like. Emotional self-projection. You are so sensitive. I may feel like I am too sensitive and dislike that part of myself. Presumption self-projection. You should like spaghetti. It's delicious. I'm assuming that they like what I like. Knowledge self-projection. You should know how to tie your shoes. I'm assuming that they know what I know. And absolved self-projection. You are so violent. Reversing actions. I am actually violent towards them or others. This particular egoic pattern that you react to most strongly in others and misperceive as their identity tend to be the same patterns that are also in you, but that you are unable or unwilling to detect within yourself. Eckhart Tolle. If this kind of real-time reading and breakdown helps you, hit the subscribe so you don't lose me. I'm uploading this book in pieces and adding more shadow work and boundary conversations. You can also hit the like and turn on the notification bell if you want YouTube to actually show you when the next part drops.